Hello guys, and welcome back to episode 51 of Europe in Detail. As you may have already guessed by now, we are going to try and build a very authentic replication of a Swiss village, or more specifically, two very distinct Swiss villages. This is the closest thing I can get to a virtual holiday, so please guys come with me on Google Earth and let's go have a look at what I'm going to build. The first village I'm going to be building is based on a place in Switzerland called Lauterbrunnen, and there's a variety of reasons why I've chosen it, but again it's got that really striking nature surrounding it that we've seen in most of the places I've visited so far in the series. And there's also another very iconic village nearby to here that's connected with some really cool means that sits up above the snow line. So we're going to have a village down here that we're going to work on first, and then eventually we're going to have a snowy village up at a much higher altitude. Originally the map was all snow, so I've modified it here so the bottom of the valleys are nice lush green. There's a big cliff that lies directly behind Lauterbrunnen that is very iconic. There's over 50 waterfalls that fall off of this cliff, but there's one in particular that sits right behind the town that really sort of looks like it's falling straight into the village if you get the right angle. It's quite amazing. Admittedly, I did a lot of the terraforming off camera, but I saved some of the juicy parts for you guys, like the cliff we just done and this mountain range here. It's going to look quite prominent in most of the shots we take. The name of the waterfall that lies directly behind Lauterbrunnen is called the Stubach Falls. I'm using Kaminogi's waterfall here with procedural objects to get it nice and thin but very long. Get your mind out of the gutter. And I kind of want to make it look like it's falling onto rocks here, and the rocks are a little bit darker than the cliff texture to make it look like they're wet, and the waterfall sort of splits into two or three. Okay, so let's start putting down some of these roads. I've got a simple or very simple highway coming in here that runs from one side of the map to the other, and there's also a train line doing the same thing. Notably, it's only a single train line and it's a one-way. It just runs one edge of the map to the other. I would like to start here with the train station, so we're going to have 3 or 4 different lines splitting off as it approaches that station, which is what we would see in real life. And then I want to run a small rural road in that we can use the train station on. I'd like all of this to function within game, so I've got to give it that vehicle access for services. The train station that I've got off the Steam Workshop isn't a Swiss train station per se, but the architecture that the train station offers is very close to what we're after. Open truss timber gable ends, rendered or plastered bottom story, and a high-pitched roof to shed snow very quickly are just some of the features that we'll find with this train station. Next, practically, would be to put a car park around it, which again is what we see in the real Lauterbrunnen. I'm experimenting here with a couple of different car parks, but eventually I settle for my go-to, which is just a very simple, ploppable, gutterless car park. I really like these ones because they look much more realistic than the node ones that we use, or can use. To finish off this area, I'll add some gravel around the train tracks and then bring the foliage right into the edge of those tracks. Now we're ready to get some buildings in here to draw some citizens in. Now's where we can really start building an atmosphere. This is always my favourite part of going to a new place, but it's also very nerve-wracking. It's hard to know where to start sometimes, and more often than not it doesn't go to plan. You just got to jump in at some point. I'm going to start here by placing down these chalet type buildings that are available on the Steam Workshop from numerous creators. You'll also see a little bit of detail added around this first neighbourhood, but it gets much more in depth as we go on with the episode. I have a link in the description of this video for all the assets and mods that I'm using while I'm here in Switzerland. Please note, however, that I will be updating this all of the time, so if you are using it, remember to get it updated as much as you can. Anyway, that was a car rental place that you see me put in right next to the train station. It's actually a Hertz car rental. But now I want to move on to detailing this train station a little bit more. I found a fantastic range of really awesome Swiss props and assets from a creator who's linked in the description, and 90% of what they have made is for train stations and detailing them specifically. The advertising, the seating, there's even cigarette smoking areas. They're all really authentic. Even things like station clocks and the lighting. I'm really hoping that anybody that's familiar with this sort of station in real life can gravitate towards this and sort of see what I'm trying to achieve. I've never been here in real life, but at this point I've studied Lauterbrunnen for at least 3 or 4 weeks and I've seen that many photos. I'm really hoping that helps me out. So while I was detailing the train station, I realized that I'd kind of paved over or detailed the entry wrong. I'd put a couple of vans in like a sort of drop-off area rather than a formal entry, and I've just got to get that right. So I'm going to move out all of those props I put in and put a nice decal on the ground like a cobblestone and some planters. There's going to be some bicycle racks if people bike here, and I'm also going to spend a little bit of time doing some appropriate signage. This is always something that I don't really take enough time with because it does take a lot of time to do this, but it adds so much when you do it to have these authentic signs with the actual name of the town on them. I need to spend a little bit of time here addressing the game mechanics. I want this town to run smoothly if I can. There's enough people here now to warrant a few services. Now let's note that this is not how I would normally lay out a normal city, if you will. But for the sake of this town, I'm going to squeeze a lot of the services we need here, or the basic ones like police, fire, health. They're all going to be squeezed into one building here. I'm going to make it look like there's a door so those vehicles can enter and exit at least somewhat realistically. But I'd also like the building to represent some type of multi-use building where one half of it is used for services and the other half is, I don't know, maybe a dentist. You guys can most definitely decide what you think that is, but there's going to be a lot of multi-purpose buildings in this town. Next, You heard me mention earlier that I made a Hertz car rental place right next to the train station. Originally, I put it on a bit of an angle here to match the road, and I'm trying to use a variety of props here to try and make it look a little bit more realistic, but ultimately I realised the shape really wasn't working. I need to change it to something a little bit more square of the building that it's based off in order to be able to make it look a little bit more realistic. For instance, it needs some sort of a fence with a gate around it so people can't steal the cars and bugger off with them, and that made a lot more sense when it was square to the main building. A lot of these little Swiss villages are quite unique in the way that there's a lot of greenery and open space that creeps its way right up to the so-called main streets. It's these beautiful open grassy plains with these small pedestrian pathways that connect these buildings that I really want to capture here. Getting technical for a little bit, I've also changed some of these buildings to procedural objects as to not manipulate the terrain around them. And I guess a good way to explain it is the closer to the road a building is, the more likely it is that it is a real functional building within game. It can be really hard to draw the line on knowing where to detail this sort of nature and where not to. For me, it's easier if I sort of just detail things like these little wee streams and rivers in the areas that I'm working around, rather than say spending hours out on the edge of the map building something that we're never going to see. For the detailing of the little stream here that runs through Lauterbrunnen, I've used Grey Flames rocks and made them a sort of a brighter green to match our grass texture. I can then move these within the vicinity of the stream to make it appear a bit more narrow. I want to do a little bit of work along the so-called main road now. I guess what sets this road apart is it's got markings on it, it's a little bit more formal, and the traffic volume's a little bit maybe higher than the other roads. But also, looking at Google Earth, we can see that there is a lot more hotels. Some of them are a little more modern than the other buildings. There's also what looks like large duplexes or fourplexes, and Some of these buildings even have commercial in their bottom floor. That may be a ski or bike rental or just a souvenir shop. There just seems like a little bit more to offer going along this main road. As we creep up and away from the train station, I find myself working on very slight inclines. I would like all of the citizens using various stairs and stuff to get into these buildings if the incline's steep, and that's what I'm going to build here. I suspect it's going to get a little bit more extreme than this a little bit later in Switzerland, but this building here has probably about a 3-meter rise up into the door off the road height. There's a couple of things I want to achieve here. I want to put a car park out the back because this is going to double as a hotel, and I'm going to have a quick access off that car park into the hotel as well as stairs off the side of the road. I would like to make an effort while we're here in Switzerland to pay more attention to road signs, and in particular spending a little bit more time customizing these with procedural objects to have the actual name of the town. I swear every new place I go in this series becomes my favourite. I'm just constantly in awe of what's available on the Steam Workshop for this game. It's just not possible to do this without that. I've linked that collection, guys, so go and give all of those asset creators that I've used so far some love. They seriously make this possible. Well, I hope you've enjoyed dipping our toes into Switzerland. In the next episode, we're going to continue and hopefully build right up to the base of the waterfall. A thumbs up on the video would be very much appreciated if you've enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed the content, please feel free to subscribe. There's heaps more content just like the stuff you've seen in this video. But please look after yourselves, guys, and look after each other. And I will see you in the next episode of Europe in Detail. See you later.